What is going on, Governor Chisgule here, and today we're going to do an evaluation of which epics are the very best in Rise of Kingdoms and exactly how you should be using them. Hello my friends and welcome back. We're going to be updating our epic tier list, which evaluates all of the different activities that you could be doing in Rise of Kingdoms and which epics are best for which of those activities. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and smash your enemies, then consider smashing the subscribe button for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. We are a sponsored content creator. Let's get this off to a good start. When we evaluate commanders, we get a look across the different areas in the game where they excel, because you can't just look at a commander and say, in general, this one's good and that one's bad. There are a lot of different things you could be doing. Those things we evaluate are city defense, battling barbarians, battling in the open field, rallying cities, rallying objectives, defending objectives, and last but not least, Sunset Canyon. If you're interested in jumping ahead to any one portion of the video, we have timestamps in the description so you can see exactly what it is you're most interested in. Now, we evaluate on a scale that ladders in directly to our legendary tier list, card up in the top. We released that this weekend for Season 4 of Kingdom vs. Kingdom, and this evaluation gets a look at all of the epics. Now, you know that these epics are available to you at the start of the game. This evaluation gets a look at how we think they have progressed through to the late game. So you'll see which commanders continue to hold weight and which ones start to fall by the wayside, and we have changed around our ratings in this session. At the very highest rating you can possibly have is an S, super powerful. Below that is A for awesome. Then below that we have B, C, D, and F. We use a plus and a minus to show when something is slightly better or is slightly worse than another commander in that same category, and we do really feel that we can make that level of differentiation. Sometimes we go in later and adjust based on what we feel is a bit more accurate, but for the most part we are really precise, we feel, with these evaluations. So with that said, let's get this started. The very first category, which honestly is a really important one, is city defense. The city defense ratings actually remain unchanged from the last time that we published this list. We would give Sun Tzu a solid A+. That's right, we think he's pretty much as good as Richard I, and honestly, it's entirely possible he's better than Richard I. Maybe we even need to bump Richard I down to an A. Sun Tzu is astonishingly good. Also as an A is Kusunoki. At A-, we have Pelagius and Ulji-Mundok. The garrison captains are super real at the epic tier, and in the early game, you should use them. I would be remiss to not mention, however, that your best garrison defense for your city is going to be a peace shield. If you think you're going to get into a tough spot, a peace shield is unbeatable. You're only going to want to take a rally or take a swarm if you think you're going to dish out a ton of dead troops to them, and your hospital is not going to overflow, thus causing you to have dead troops yourself. The next category is barbarians and forts, and previously the king in this category was Boudica, Belisarius, and Lohar. I gave them all A's for different reasons. I would say Lohar's not all that great for forts, but he's so good at barbarians and sustain that I gave him the A. I gave Belisarius an A because he's got a lot of mobility, and when you're battling barbarians, you do really want to get around quickly. We've given Boudica an A because she does a lot of damage and she gives extra experience. Really solid. We give Kira the A+ because she does area of effect damage, which is very, very solid. There's a good chance that you can get other barbarians to attack you for free. Card up in the top where we show how to do that using your action points and area of effect damage to get free barbs. She also has a solid 35% bonus damage to Barbarians, and although we don't really include this into the factoring for the Barbarians and Forts category, she does do extra damage in Soroli Crisis and Ian's Ballads. She is a solid contributor here. The only downside, of course, is just how gosh darn difficult it's going to be to expertise her. And if I'm deciding between a 5-5-1-1 Kira or an expertise Boudica, I think the expertise Boudica is generally a pretty clear pick. Continuing to our next category is open field combat. And I have changed my estimate here of Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc is amazing because of her first skill, giving a huge buff to all nearby allies, and the radius for this is very large. I bumped her up to an A+ because I still use her in my own Murder Ball. In KVK Season 4, she's so good with these buffs, generating 200 rage over the course of 4 seconds. I honestly, she's astonishingly good. You need to have her on the battlefield. I'm so invested in that. I use her myself with all my other legendary commanders to ensure I get these buffs. It's that good, people. Joan of Arc is game-changing in the field for yourself and your allies, and to that end, I also upped the estimate of Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu is just freaking amazing. The area of effect damage is great. I still use this commander myself. I love the damage taken reduction in the third skill. He cares only slightly about infantry, which is one of the many reasons why Sun Tzu is so phenomenal. He does elevate the damage of another commander you're with. Love this commander. He is deserving of that A. We put Kira in at a B. I think she's fine in the open field. The area of effect damage here, I mean, it's solid. Her expertise skill is going to make it so you're doing even more area of effect damage, and a lot of it to boot. But she doesn't have any march speed. It does require you to bring archers. A lot of people use cavalry, which is going to counter those archers. I think she's good, but I don't think she's worth going all in on to try to use her in an open field capacity over some of these other commanders, which I think, like, your top priority is your Sun Tzu and your Joan of Arc. After that, like, yeah, Kira, Kusunoki, your Pelagius, Osman, Herman, Belisarius. You got a lot of choices, and I felt like she was on par with all those other choices. Going on to our next category, rallying cities. This will be really brief. We added Kira to the list. I don't think she's great at this. I gave her a C-. You really shouldn't be rallying cities with epics unless you are in the very, very early game of Rise of Kingdoms, in which case your best bet here, in my opinion, is going to be Osman, pairing him with someone who generates outrageous amounts of rage. Moving on to our next category is rallying objectives. I'm going to have to say the same thing again for this portion. If you're in the early game, you might be looking at using epics. If that's what you're doing, I think some of your best choices are going to be Kusunoki and Ulji Mundak. That is largely because they have a lot of anti-swarm technology. What does that mean? If you swarm an Ulji Mundak, he's going to get bonus damage. That is very solid. If you swarm a Kusunoki and he's getting lots of debuffs, at least he clears them and does some area of effect damage. There's a chance he'll hit some of those targets and do a lot of damage to them. I think he's pretty solid. It's entirely conceivable that I'm undervaluing the Sun Tzu and I should elevate the score that I've given him because he's so good in so many situations. He would be good in a rally as well. I actually, as I look at this, think maybe he should be higher up, especially because the damage taken is a sort of anti-swarm technology here. I might bump him up to a B after this video is concluded. For defending objectives, we actually do have Sun Tzu as a solid choice here. I listed him as an A+ in the past, and I'm going to keep him as an A+. Sun Tzu is phenomenal. The 7% damage taken reduction from the garrison is fantastic. This generates a lot of value as a stat that you're bringing. Doesn't care what troop type you're bringing to the fight as well. And look, if you are in a structure and Sun Tzu's area of effect damage hits you, it is going to inflict dead troops onto those targets. Even if they aren't swarming the structure, if his AoE hits anyone from the opposing force, they are going to take dead troops, and that is really powerful. And he's going to even generate more rage for having done that. I mean, slices, dices, and does it all. He's the E-Song equivalent for free-to-play players. Your next best bets are going to be Kusunoki, and then Uljimundak, and then Pelagius. Very likely, if you are using an epic pairing, that you're going to rock the Sun Tzu with Uljimundak as a pair. Both of them, a lot of anti-swarm technology. You'd go all in on the infantry in that case, and that's a very solid plan. Moving on to our final category, and this is where we've seen the most change for sure, is going to be Sunset Canyon. We saved the best for last. You do Canyon every day, and man, these commanders are solid. I actually have bumped up my estimation of almost every epic commander that's on this list. Let's start with Joan of Arc, who I actually have moved up to the S- tier. It's the only epic that I've given an S in any category for, and it's Joan of Arc. Every single team at the top end, without exception, is using Joan of Arc in Canyon. She's just that freaking amazing. I'm telling you, this buff is gangbuster. I still use her, and I feel like I get crazy value. We bumped her up to an S- from an A+. In a similar vein, you know who else I'm still using at the epic tier? Even though I have all these legendaries to work with, I'm still using Sun Tzu. He's really good. I'm rocking Isong Sun Tzu in the back line. They do some serious work. I think Sun Tzu's deserving of the A+ that I've now awarded him, and I think this helps you evaluate in an apples-to-apples way with the legendary commanders in our legendary tier list. In an A-, I have bumped up Kusunoki. You know, if I wasn't pairing Sun Tzu with Isong, I would be using Kusunoki. Kusunoki does area of effect damage, which is exactly what you want in Canyon. He's got a ton of stats to boot and a ton of damage to the target that he's hitting. He's doing basically everything you want in Canyon except maybe healing and tankiness, but you can't do literally everything, right? So this commander, phenomenal, gave him the A-. I also put Kira as an A-, by the way, as a new entrant. I feel like she also does astonishing amounts of damage. And between Kira and Kusunoki, it's hard to say which one I would value more. Kusunoki is clearing debuffs with his active skill. That's often overlooked in this skill, but if you read it, it removes all negative and control effects before doing the damage, which is really solid. But if you wanted just the raw damage, I do think Kira's the better pick. The reality, though, is that she's so hard to obtain that you'll start by using Kusunoki and get a ton of value that way. We did also bump up substantially our evaluation of Uljimundak. I really underestimated just how good he is with Sun Tzu, just how good he is even with Joan of Arc and you bring full infantry. He is a tanky commander due to the high volume of stats that you're getting here. The defense is solid, and infantry are generally pretty solid to have on the front. The damage boost you get when you're taking damage is really good too. So I use him in a sort of tanking capacity. He's also debuffing the defense of the target, which is really good. I like Uljimundak in Canyon. I use him on my farm and on my restart and feel like I'm getting really good value. He deserves that B+. I also have bumped up to a B+, none other than Scipio. You know, I'll tell you something. I realized I needed something else to put on my front line. I've got Joan of Arc on the front line. I've got Ethelfled on the front line. Who can I put that's tanky with my Ethelfled or my Joan? Gosh darn it, it's freaking Scipio. Scipio is doing extra counterattack damage, reducing the damage taken by 25%. He actually has healing as well, which is really quite good. He even lets you bring more troops to the battlefield. Also very exceptional. I have been underrating Scipio in Canyon as a pair with either Joan or Ethelfled. Put him in the front to tank, and that is really quite exceptional. He earns that B+, and I have been sleeping on that choice. I did slightly bump down my evaluation, however, of Pelagius in Canyon. He's good, but not as good as I was giving him credit for. I like the healing. I like the rage gen. I like the stats. I like the damage. The thing that I find myself lacking, however, in this commander is area of effect damage. And you really, really, really want area of effect damage in your back lane as much as possible because you're going to be hitting multiple targets and you're only going to be taking skill attack damage and counterattack damage. So the thing you want is to dish out as much damage as possible. Pelagius is doing that only to a single target, and why hit one when you can hit multiple and get so much value? I mean, look no further than Kira or Sun Tzu. For every target beyond the first, like an extra 1,000 damage factor, or if you had the expertise, 1,400 damage factor. I mean, like, this is the thing you want in Canyon, in your back line. Just massive area of effect damage. So he doesn't have that. I bumped him down to B-. I don't think he deserves a C+, but it's conceivable. Bybars I have left at a B. He does have area of effect damage, but much of his other stuff doesn't actually apply. Garrison-related stuff, march speed when you leave combat, and healing when you leave combat doesn't actually matter. But he does do area of effect damage. So what you could do is use, Pelagius and Bybars in the back line. Unfortunately, no AoE with the Pelagius, but it's generating rage to crank out the AoE from Bybars, which will be a pretty solid pairing. I also have Osman at a B+, and even though he only does damage to single targets, I've left this rating unchanged because if you put him with a rage engine, that third skill right over here does so much damage. You get 400 damage factor when the primary commander uses their skill, 400 damage factor when the secondary commander uses their skill. Bringing more troops is disproportionately good in Canyon compared to other modes, so this fourth skill is very, very good. If he had AoE damage, it'd be Gangbuster. You can only have so much, though, so I'll take this. He is really solid for his single target damage. You pair him with a commander like Sun Tzu to generate lots of rage, and you can do some pretty serious work. Let's get the overall ratings up so you can see what we think here. Overall, we put Sun Tzu at an A, and we did bump up that overall rating to be more commensurate with comparing to the legendary commanders. We did also bump up Joan of Arc to a B+. Possible I should go even further and make that an A-. Unlike Sun Tzu, who's good in a lot of game modes, Joan of Arc really is good in just two places, open field and Canyon, and that's it. So we'd give her a higher rating if she had more utility in other places. She really doesn't, so we've left it there. And the remainder of the ratings are almost all the same. We did bump up Osman slightly to a C. We did bump up CPO as well slightly to a C. And I think they are deserving of those ratings. And we slot Kira in to this whole listing, by the way, as a really solid B. A really solid B. I do feel that her area of effect damage is extremely high for an epic. Pairing her with really like Ethelfled, Isong, Kusunoki, all of those will do very, very well. And the only major downside to her is that it's going to take you a very long time to get her sculptures to max her out. We've got her at 5.321 at the time that this was recorded, and I imagine it'll take a solid 5 or so months, maybe longer, before we've got her expertise. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, do me a favor, drop a like on the video, consider subscribing for more daily Rise of Kingdoms content. We do try to put out videos that help free-to-play players and low spenders, leaning on our experience with both our farm, where we only spend to get gems, to gem kingdom buffs. That's kind of a crazy idea. And then on our restart project, where we do buy the 30-day gem supply as well. Until next time, my friends, you have fun smashing the kingdom.